Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Live around the world on the internet at MichaelDukesShow.com and across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Hello, my friends, and good morning to you on this beautiful Monday, Fun Day Monday morning here on the big radio program. And we've got a jam-packed show for you today to dive into and listen to. We are... Oof, man, it's Monday. I mean, it's a Monday right now, but we're about to be joined by Sarah Montalbano. Montalbano Monday. That's right. You know what it's about. Our favorite energy analyst is about to come on board and share with us some of her insight, wit, wisdom, and witticism. That's what's happening. It's a lot of W's going on there. She's going to join us, and we're going to talk a little bit about all kinds of stuff. We're going to talk a little bit about the Eilson Air Force Base, their nuke project. We're going to talk a little bit about the energy renaissance, which she wrote about last month. We haven't talked to her in a while, so we're going to talk a little bit about that, and maybe a little bit about why aren't the kids being taught about the fact that the environment seems to be getting better, and whatever else we feel like. Why? Because we just love to talk to Sarah, and we love what's going on there. So we're going to talk with her here in just a moment. After Sarah, we're going to be diving into our series on local candidates. So the next probably 8 weeks between the Fairbanks, between the Kenai, and between Matsu. We've got a lot of elections happening because the Fairbanks and the Kenai elections, municipal elections, both for borough and city council and all that kind of stuff, that is going to happen in October. So we're about 4 weeks away from that. And then in November, the Matsu, they changed their elections to match the regular election. Why didn't we just all do that? Why don't we just all put our elections on the same day? I mean, it would just seem to make sense. You're right. I mean, let's just do that. So anyway, that's kind of where we're going right now. And we're going to talk with our first candidate in this series. And that's going to be Mike Jones, who is running for city council in Homer. I put out, I don't know, probably 70 emails to the various candidates and everything else for Fairbanks and Matsu and Kenai and all the points in between. So we'll see what comes of that. But we're going to start in hour 2 with Mike Jones. And he's going to come on board and talk with us about his vision for the city of Homer. All right. Well, let's get into it. We're ready to go. We've got Sarah waiting in the wings, and I'm not going to make her wait anymore. That's right. I'm not going to make her wait anymore. She's over there right now. Let's get to it. Sarah Montalbano starts off with what we lovingly call Montalbano Mondays, and she's with us right now. Hello, Sarah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. How am I sounding to you?
You're perfect, except you're a little short. You might want to pull that camera down just a little. You're a little short. You're just a little short.
I am short, but I don't see how that's relevant.
Really? I mean, you had to bring that up this morning. I mean, what's going on? Sarah Montalbano comes on occasionally with us. She writes, of course, for she has her own Substack, which is ironically called Montalbano Mondays. Because we used to do this a lot of times here on the show. We used to love to bring her on to talk about education, but she shifted gears a little bit And she also writes for the I can't even ever remember what it is. It's the Minnesota Free Enterprise American Experiment. What is it? It's the American
Center
Experiment.
of the American Experiment.
Center for the
in
American
Minnesota.
Experiment in Minnesota. All right. I knew I had it in there somewhere. Always gets me going on. All right. Well, Sarah, we wanted to crack in on some things, and really this was just an excuse to bring you on to pick your brain about all the things that you think are hot and heavy. So I want to get started, but first and foremost, this there was a meeting here in Fairbanks, I guess 10 days ago or so, where it was like the first community meeting on the nuclear project, the pilot project for this small microreactor that they're putting in at Eilson Air Force Base in the interior. And there's some details there. I reached out to Okla, the OKLA. Okla is the company that is receiving this contract. And I've tried to reach out to him a couple times, but I haven't heard back from him, because I just would love to talk to somebody about this. I think this is a great idea and a great project. And you and I have talked a lot about nuclear being a solution to some of these problems. What's your thought? What's going on here? What's your take on this whole thing right now?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought this up. I'm sorry, I'm recovering from an illness here, so I hope you'll forgive the coughing. I was all over this when they first announced back in like 2022 or 3 or something. And I wrote an op-ed about it, and I was like, this is a great thing. This is going to be great for rural Alaska. This is going to really show what we can do, because microreactors are going to be the next big thing. So I'm excited they've got to the contract stage. I think it's a notice to award a contract, so the contract specifics haven't been hammered out with Oklo yet. What I do know is Oklo is really the only company of any sort that has gotten approval for its microreactor plans. The rest haven't gotten through the Nuclear Regulatory Commission yet. So I think it's a very logical choice. I think it's a choice that has a lot of reasoning behind it. And I think they're still hoping to have it done by 2027 or something like that. So that's really exciting.
Yeah, no, it is exciting. And and I gotta tell you, and if you need to cough, just feel free to cough. It's okay. We're all human. We're all human. We do it here.
Yeah.
But this is a pretty small project. I mean, they're talking about what, 5-6 megawatts. This is not it's not a huge project, but they admit that it can pay back to the to the community, like multifold. And then of course, as a pilot project, this could be something that could then be modeled and done pretty much anywhere. I mean, it is a small self-contained system that can be trucked in, trucked out. I mean, away you go. I mean, this is kind of it's a really interesting setup.
Yeah, it's very exciting because you probably don't have to really refuel these things. Like, they are so self-contained, just depending on design, that you bring them in, they run for 10 years or something, and then you can refuel them, or you can bring them out. It's really exciting. And I haven't looked into what Oklo's plans actually look like for this. I don't know that they've figured it out, but the next step's going to be an environmental impact statement, which I think should go fairly quickly, considering the administration's interest in this project. Frankly, I think it's going to be a pilot project for the whole world, for the whole United States, as well as Alaska and our rural areas and our utilities, just showing it can be done, because the military is a really smart use case for this kind of thing. They want to have enough power to keep some operations going if things go down, and that's a smart way to get backup power that's just 24/7.
Right.
So.
Brian has just dropped a link in the chat room from the Eilson Air Force Base, their official page, so you can go check out, get some details there as well. Sarah, you and I have talked specifically about how nuclear can alleviate a lot of the problems that we're going to be facing, because we have converted so much of our grid capacity to I've forgotten the word. It's Monday and I haven't had any coffee. To basically unsteady power. All right. It's power
Intermittent.
Intermittent. Thank you. It's the intermittent power. We're talking about things like wind and solar. Renewables like hydro, of course, deliver 24/7, 365 all the time. but the wind and solar, those are intermittent, especially in Alaska. Things with the solar, that's tough, and wind just doesn't deliver the constancy that you need for a baseline power grid. And we've talked about solar, and it seems like we're kind of turning the corner on this right now.
Mhm.
Seems like we're kind of turning the corner on this idea that nuclear, since ever since Chernobyl and 3 Mile Island and all these disasters, Fukushima, it seemed like everybody was running against that. But overall, it's I think we're turning the corner, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. I think nuclear is really kind of the bipartisan favorite right now, and I think that's for a lot of good reasons. People of my persuasion like nuclear because it is the reliable 24/7 baseload power that you can rely on consistently. And I think there's a lot to be said for those of the other persuasion that want zero carbon power, but also don't want to sacrifice the reliability of the grid, because it turns out that humans need electricity for a lot of things, and if you don't have reliable power, it becomes a problem very quickly. And wind and solar, I think you've seen a lot in the last year or so, maybe 6 months, coincidentally, that is really showing that the tide is turning on that. In the reconciliation bill, we actually saw large repeals, mostly of the wind and solar tax credits, which were raising the costs for everybody and artificially lowering the costs of wind and solar and incentivizing a lot of build out of intermittent sources that didn't make a lot of sense for the area. So, a lot of news reports saying, "Oh gosh, this project is no longer economical without these subsidies and tax credits." Well, you say, well, maybe it shouldn't have been being built in the first place if it wasn't economic. So
Right.
that's the kind of thing we're seeing a lot of right now. So
I think it's eye-opening, and when you look at the project after project after project that all of a sudden is screaming about, well, we just can't do it. We can't do it without the handout from Uncle Sugar, right? I mean, if it's whether it's a tax credit or a subsidy, we just can't do it. And we're like, wait a second, we've built a lot of things out without all the governmental bailout or intervention or things like that. So it truly was a thing where they were basically manipulating or polluting the market, the free market, with all this government money to put these ideas forward, which again, as you've talked about, and I know you've got a whole bunch of writing you've done for the Minnesota and for the Midwest areas of energy delivery, it's going to cause a real problem because we've converted so much. I mean, we're going to have some, there's going to be some issues on the power grid. And we just saw this. I mean, you and I think we talked about this last time, but Barcelona, Spain, and Spain in general, they just faced a huge problem this summer because they had massive outages because they didn't have that baseload power anymore. They've converted a bunch of their stuff, their dependable long-term stuff, to more of the alternative energy sources, which weren't delivering the power needed to keep the lights on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was termed this blackout in Spain was termed by a couple. One reporter, I think, from Bloomberg that said this is the first blackout of the renewable era, and I thought, well, that is an awful thing to say when this this is something that could be completely avoided if we just stopped overbuilding this intermittent source, because it's not as simple as we can build enough wind and solar across, an entire country and just shuttle things across for transmission lines. It's not quite as simple as that, because you need to build the backup. You still need natural gas and coal on the grid in order to stabilize things. You could also benefit a lot from nuclear, and part of the problem is that Europe has been steadily retiring its nuclear power. So they're reaching kind of an inflection point. They're actually starting to restart some of these nuclear plants. They haven't fully shuttered them. They've just mothballed them for a while, and now they're bringing them back for stability. And I think that's a really, really good lesson to learn from this Spain problem.
We shut that off. Maybe we should turn it back on. We've got some real problems here. I know at one point France had something like 75 or 80% of their overall national power being generated by nuclear power, and they were kind of held up as, look what's going on here, guys. I mean, and between the dependency on natural gas from Russia into Europe and the fact that they're trying to push all this renewable stuff, yeah, I'm not surprised that they're going to be reverse course on some of those things. It's something that we obviously need to be expanding here, and I'm hoping that this Eilson thing is just the first step, because they've said they want to streamline the process right through nuke and everything else. They want to streamline this process and get it going so where we can start doing this all over the country.
Yeah, and this ties in really well because there was an executive order maybe a month or two ago. It's flying by. It's just so much news so fast. So, but there was an executive order about reforming the NRC, trying to emphasize speed in the permitting timeline, because what they'd like to do is make it so that a renewal on a currently existing nuclear plant takes less than 12 months to approve from the NRC, and a new one should take less than 18 months. So that's exciting. There was also in 2024 the Advance Act, which tried to put some stuff into place to make a uniform process for small modular reactors and microreactors, which I think is helpful. But they're going to have to actually move into the implementation of that soon. So I think this will be a practice project for a lot of different entities in the federal government to get things right, to learn how to do it quickly. And then you can work in other sites across the U.S.
All right, Sarah Montalbano is our guest. We're going to give her a moment to rest her voice and drink some water and do all that. We're going to continue here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We'll return with more for Montalbano Monday right here on the Michael Duke Show. Don't forget to come out and check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/Michael Duke Show /live if you want to join us in the chat room. We'd love to hear you. All right, here we go. Back with more. And Sarah Montalbano right after this.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Hey. All right, we are back in the break. I forgot to turn something on this morning. It's Monday, man. I worked all weekend. Oh, I had our contract engineer was here, and we were working on stuff, moving stuff around and doing stuff all weekend. I'm with you, Sarah. I didn't feel, I'm not sick, but I feel like I got drained. It's quite a deal. I hope you're okay. I hope you're okay.
Oh yeah. I got sick about 10 days ago now, and it's just this lingering persistent cough, and I apologize because I am not on my A game for this Montalbano Monday either, but there's got to be an occasional B+ performance out of me.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I'm willing to accept it.
I'll call it an A-. We'll be fine. It'll be good. I want to get into the some of your other writings here that you've been talking about as well. And I know, excuse me, and I know that we could also talk about the Ambler Road project as well. That's another big thing that I know that's going to be important for Alaska. So we'll get started with that in the meanwhile. How was your summer? I mean, I guess we haven't talked in, I guess it's been a couple months. So how's your summer? How's things going?
Good. Yeah, it's beautiful here in Florida, and we've so far avoided hurricanes. So I'm pleased about that. That's the worst part of this stuff, and it's finally starting to cool down. So I'm enjoying it finally.
It's my daughter lives in Florida, and I'm like, why? You're melting all the time.
I hate it.
I hate it, she said. I remember my friend told me one time when we were growing up, one of my friends said, yeah, we went to Florida for the first time. I said, what's it like? He goes, well, you take a shower, you get out of the shower, you don't even bother to dry off. You just put your clothes on and walk away, because it's just the humidity and everything. Just like, oh man, that just sounds sticky.
Mhm.
Anyway, it's amazing. You got a chance to go to Washington as well, and you did a big Washington tour. And I know we mentioned that before, but how was that? Go walking the halls of power, etc.
It was really, really cool. There's no other way to put it. I think I personally ended up meeting with 20 or so offices of various representatives and senators, some of which aren't really from mining states, but the Women's Mining Coalition wants a broad net here, and we talked about their priorities: more, domestic mining, more mining education, which I think is a really important part of the puzzle. And yeah, it was extremely exciting, and it's led to some good contacts there still. So very exciting stuff.
Good.
Um,
Sarah's going to be a mover and shaker in the halls of power there. We're
we'll
gonna do it.
see.
So I mean, now you got mining and energy and education. You're wearing multiple hats. What you're just kind of doing a little bit of everything.
A little bit, yeah. I'm even working on a healthcare paper right now, because one of our healthcare guys at American Experiment got called in to work in the administration again in January. So I'm left kind of picking that up and trying so hard to finish it. It's not my subject, and healthcare is a little wonky even for me. But
Well, it is. I mean, it's got there's a lot of bells and whistles and add-ons over there. That's for sure. And definitely an interesting thing. I just see that Teresa said in the chat room she lives on Kodiak, with Kodiak Island, and she said that they just got an award for the wind power, which has not quit working intermittently for years now. It's been steady, but you're the exception, Teresa, and not the rule. I mean, there may be certain areas where the wind blows all the time, but again, it's about power load. And it's about whether or not it stays consistent for the overall surge. And that's what they're finding in Minnesota, right? That surge is what's going to get them on their renewables, is that it just can't handle that surge load.
Yeah, exactly. The problem with electricity is that you need to be able to meet not only your kind of average demand, but also the peak demand. So there's daily peaks where, everyone comes home around 6 p.m. and turns on all their lights and runs their laundry and dishwasher and stuff. All of that is daily kind of peak load. But then there's also, we've hit a lot of general peaks in the PJM interconnection, which is serving a lot of the eastern seaboard.
Hold on.
MISO. Yeah,
Hold on. I'm sorry. Hold on.
please.
I bork the time here. We're
We're
about to
blowing
jump back in. Here we go.
All right.
The Michael Duke Show. Not your daddy. Wait, sorry. Not your daddy? Ooh, not your daddy's talk radio. Whew. I was scared for a second. Thought we were going down. Here's Michael Dukes and the show.
Okay. Too many buttons this morning. All right. We're ready to continue here. Sarah Montalbano, our guest, Montalbano Mondays. We were just talking about, again, the surging, Sarah, and what's required. And this is where a lot of the renewables have fallen short, is the fact that it's not just the base load. It's not just the average load that they have to worry about. It's peak, and not just peak like everyday peak, but in the seasonal peak too, when you have things like air conditioners and other things, or heaters in the winter or whatever. That's where we're having some real problems with this surging, is that they just can't. They don't have the capacity for that at this point. That's what they've discovered to do. What they've discovered is they don't have the capacity for the peak, I guess we should say, at times when it's necessary.
Yeah, that's right. And what we've learned in MISO, which is serving Minnesota and a lot of the Midwest, and is kind of my home grid now for work. The problem is often that we've built out a lot of solar, we've built out a lot of wind. We have this 2040 100% clean electricity mandate, so utilities are going all in on this. And what we've seen is the grid watchdog here, the grid watchdog, the monitor, has released reports saying basically, look, our peak demand is shifting, so we're seeing it less in the dog days of summer where your AC is blasting, and it's moving more towards August and things like that, because that's when solar generation is starting to drop off. So, our demand is remaining high through August, but our generation is plummeting at that time when the days are starting to get shorter. So there's some serious reliability risks in MISO right now. I believe it's anticipated that they will see shortfalls within the next 10 years that are under normal peak conditions. So not even unusual heat waves or, extreme weather or anything like that, that they are anticipating problems soon in normal conditions. And PJM actually hit this summer. And that's a large part of the Eastern Seaboard. It's the biggest grid, covering Pennsylvania, pieces of Ohio, things like that. They had a serious peak demand this summer that they didn't actually have any blackouts from, but it was way higher than what they forecasted for this summer. So there's serious risks, and that's the other problem with this is it's just planning. You can do as much planning as you'd like, but then real world conditions can come in and wallop you if you're not prepared for it.
Right.
So margins need to be thick enough to anticipate that, and it needs to be dispatchable.
Yeah, and that's the thing, the dispatchable power. All right, well, let's move over. We were going to talk a little bit more about Alaska stuff, and the House has passed a resolution that was sponsored by Nick Begich, which had to do with the land management plan that was preventing the Ambler Road project. Give me some details on this, and this goes back to you were talking about earlier, how you've been kind of dabbling your fingers into the mining area as well. Let's talk about this bill in the Ambler Road project.
Yeah, this one is exciting. So the House typically doesn't seem to do anything about resource management plans. But what they did in this day where Begich's resolution to overturn the Central Yukon land management plan that spans about 13 million acres, and it came along with two resource management plans, also with North Dakota and some other state that I wasn't paying attention to. But they actually voted to disapprove under the Congressional Review Act of all three of those because they were kind of rushed through at the end of the Biden administration. So BLM has an opportunity to kind of redo these things, redo these land management plans if they'd like. It's going to open up opportunities for Ambler to be discussed again, which I think is very exciting. There were some efforts made during reconciliation to get approval of the Ambler Road in that bill, but it was tossed out because the Senate parliamentarian decided that it wasn't fiscally relevant, and that's kind of the criteria for reconciliation. Is you need to show that it has some dollars and cents impact. So Ambler Road is still going to, I think, see approval, but in a different way. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens here. I believe in Representative Begich's press release, there was mention about the state possibly taking over these lands because the Ambler Road project is only under federal permitting because there's a 20-mile or so stretch of the road that would be on federal lands. Most of it is through state lands. So I think there's some discussion probably going on about, well, how do we get this under state jurisdiction? And then that permitting can go smoother.
Well, I mean, it'd be exciting to see. I mean, the one thing that we were promised at statehood, of course, was development and infrastructure for the resources, to access the resources. And this would be one of those things that I think that we could be focusing on and get more, if we're focusing on more revenue for the state or more expansion of the economy, there's a great opportunity there for that to get done. What do you think the possibility is? I mean, looking at this and kind of watching these things, what do you think what's our possibility? Give me gambler's odds here on this. What do you think is going to happen with this?
I think 60-40, it's going to be probably approved during this administration. And then the question becomes, well, how fast can we do the environmental impact statements and whatever else needs to be done at the federal level? Or if it's state, how fast can they move at the state level without sacrificing any environmental soundness? So that, I think, is very possible for us to see within the next, 3.5 years. I think that would be very exciting. But we'll have to see. These are huge projects, and it's very hard for mines to get started. The exploration is difficult. Only about 1 in 1,000 mining prospect actually becomes a successful mine at the end of its path. So but we have to get a road out there or something in order to do some of that exploration. And I know there are several proposed mines in the area that would then also have to go through permitting and stuff like that. So I really see the road as a prerequisite, and that will need to be done with a lot of input from Native communities and everyone else affected. So
right
60-40, I think it's going to start moving.
Well, and of course, as you said, in this the key part of that whole phrase is during this administration, and who knows what the future may bring beyond that. And that's kind of the wiffle ball that we've had going back and forth across the net is administration. They just reversed all that stuff that was rushed in at the last minute of the Biden administration. That kind of thing is throwing us for a loop. Two different things here other things that I want to touch on. One is your article from early August, which is actually a repost of some of your pieces that you did for the summer edition of Thinking Minnesota, talking about the energy renaissance. And we got about 3.5, 4 minutes here. So can you give us just a brief synopsis of that before we get into the final segment? I mean, you talk about how we're prioritizing that reliability and affordability over the climate mandates, which is and those are, as you say, kind of arbitrary. So give us the rundown here.
Yeah. So this piece was summer 2025. So I didn't have the benefit of some of the most recent stuff, which is also very exciting. But up until that point, our Secretary of Energy has had some really fantastic quotes that you just can't imagine from any prior Secretary of Energy. He said at a conference, everywhere wind and solar penetration have increased significantly, prices on the grid went up and stability of the grid went down. Is this pathway really going to put natural gas in the rearview mirror? That's crazy, frankly, from a Secretary of Energy. And I think it's really exciting that he is so focused on human flourishing, on reducing energy poverty, and to making sure that people have the energy they need to thrive. And the rest of the article kind of goes through some of these first 100-day actions that are kind of intended to do that. It's reliability, affordability, and innovation that is ultimately driving that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think when you look at it from that perspective and you see that, I mean, you're right. That's a crazy quote that the more we go into it, the more expensive it becomes and the less reliable it becomes. That sounds like the completely backwards of where we actually want and need to be or should be. I mean, as things, technology should make things, because with everything else, technology has made things more accessible, more affordable, easier to use. And this just seems like we're kind of flying in the face of that idea, and kind of going back to, I hate to use the word cult, but I mean, it's kind of that cult of green energy that only wind and solar will do. It's kind of crazy. And the fact that a Secretary of Energy actually said that shows that somebody apparently is paying attention.
It's a huge attitude change, and I think it's extremely important to see that because they've really stopped the war on fossil fuels. They've rolled back the Clean Power Plan 2.0, which was going to force all of the coal plants to shut down essentially, or do 90% carbon capture. We submitted public comments on that, and we said, look, this is a great thing. Thank you for doing this. This is going to save the reliability of the grid. There's also all the nuclear actions that I think is incredibly exciting. The reliability portion of that just shows, we are able to do zero carbon if you want, but nuclear is the best way to go about that. So it's just amazing, the attitudinal shift in Washington.
We're going to continue here with Sarah Montalbano here in just a moment. Give her a chance to recoup a little. She's such a trooper, coming in feeling poorly. I feel you. I'm going back to bed after this show. That's right. It's Monday. Montalbano Mondays. That's what it is. It's the only time it's a good Monday, when it's a Montalbano Monday. All right, we got to continue here with Sarah Montalbano in just a moment. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Back with more right after this.
Running on 100% pure beard power. Oh, also some coffee. We dip our beard in coffee.
Ha, nice beard.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay, we're in the break. Sarah Montalbano, our guest. I saw a meme the other day, and I meant to look into it before we sit down for the show, and I wasn't able to. But it was something about it showed the stockpile. There's a picture of a stockpile of spent nuclear fuel rods, right? And it's they're in these containers, and it's like 20 containers on this like 1 acre lot. And that was like, this is all the fuel that was used for, I don't know, 40 years or something like that. And then something about the meme was about, now tell them that they can use that, the spent fuel, and burn it up in high energy reactors or something. Are you familiar with this idea? Can you explain it to me? Because I am not familiar with these high energy reactors where it actually burns the spent fuel and we don't have to store it. Can you give me the detail on that real quick, or any kind of insight?
Yeah, I'm not an expert on this, but I have a colleague who is, and it's really, he loves this stuff, because really only about 3% of the spent fuel from a nuclear reactor is actually, entirely spent and can't be used again. It just needs more processing. So what can be done is really we take this spent fuel from our early generations of nuclear reactors. You can reprocess them into isotopes of whatever. I'm not familiar exactly with the elements involved, but you can reprocess those and put them into more advanced reactors. And those advanced reactors, I think we're going to see on the market by 2030 or something like that. So that's, I think, kind of going to be the big solution to the nuclear waste problem. I think we don't need to worry terribly about where are we going to store all of this permanently, and more that we want to have some of this available for the new generation of reactors that's going to be coming online. I think it's very exciting.
Right. And of course, we've also talked about the self-contained thorium salt reactors, and the technology has been stifled for so long because of the fear, right? I mean, again, I mentioned that Chernobyl, the 3 Mile Island, and Fukushima, all these other kind of things, but all of those are using some of these older technologies. And now in the last 5 to 10 years, we're starting to see some real advances in that technology. Whereas if we'd been kind of pursuing this over the last 30 years, where would we have been today? That's the kind of thing. It's that stifling of innovation. It's the fear. Somebody just said something about that kind of resonated with me. Mark just said, nuclear waste has been used as a fear button since the atom was harnessed. I found in my education on the matter that respect is what's needed, not fear. And I agree with that. I think, like anything, there can be a danger to any technology that we use. But as long as we respect it and not fear it, just think of what if we had been, again, 100% full bore researching new technologies for the last 30 years, where we could be today. Looking at just the acceleration in the last 10 years, if it had been for the previous 20 or 30 years ahead of that, where would we be today?
I find this a really important thing to be thinking about, because the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, up until I think last year, didn't have anything in its mission about actually trying to bring nuclear power to people. It was entirely and exclusively focused on safety, which is good, right? But they have some kind of flawed ways of going about that, which says it's a no linear, no threshold model, where they say, okay, any any possible radiation exposure is too much, it will, accumulate linearly with hazards to people. And that, I think, has led to the fact that the NRC hasn't really approved any reactors except for one over its entire tenure as an agency. We built most of these nuclear plants before the NRC came on the stage. So we've had a long time where we have not focused on actually bringing it safely to people, but mostly preventing it out of safety.
Right, and I think that's partially because, again, who wants to spend umpteen $1 million in regulatory, efforts to try and design and do all this stuff only to have it sit and be. That's the thing. The private sector doesn't want to invest in these things unless they know that there's a path forward, and if there's no clear path forward, that's part of the problem. And if you could say, even whatever you think about Trump, this is one thing where he has opened that path forward to at least give them an opportunity to go through the regulatory hurdles and actually have a chance of actually having something come to fruition at the end.
Absolutely. And that's also why we should be, I think, grateful for this whole data center phenomena, because it's really put a spotlight on the fact that they are going to need 24/7 reliable electricity.
Yep.
They have the money to throw around to restart, Unit 1 at 3 Mile Island. They are planning to restart that by 2027. So I think that's super exciting. Honestly.
Yeah, no, I do too. And we could geek out about this for another hour, but we're going to continue on here. Sarah Montalbano is our guest. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio.
Public enema number one. Oh, wait, sorry. Public enemy number one, which makes more sense. On the other hand, he's a little bit of a pain in the Michael Duke Show.
All right, we're continuing now with Sarah Montalbano for some of our favorite Montalbano Monday topics, giving her a chance to regroup and recoup there. She's a trooper coming on when she's not feeling super hot, so it's good that she is coming on board. She wrote a piece back in late August here a couple weeks ago that talked about the environment's getting better. But why aren't we being taught that? Why aren't kids being taught that? I mean, if you go to the schools and you see the news releases about the kids outside the schools, don't protect our planet, how dare you, right? I mean, all the things, the kids are all activated that we're destroying the world and everything else. And this piece really kind of goes through some of the actual details and says, wait a second, we've actually gotten a lot better. Sarah, walk us through this.
Yeah, this was a really popular piece on Center of the American Experiments website. I got a lot of people just straight up emailing me and telling me how much they appreciated it. So I think this kind of myth busting is long overdue. So many young people are terrified about the climate. They're super worried about it. 73% of Americans writ large, are saying that climate news has made them feel sad about what's happening to the earth. 56% felt anxious about the future. 34% felt guilty they're not doing more. So I thought this was a really important thing to point out, that look, we in the US, our air quality has improved dramatically since the 1970s. Some of that is in part due to, heavy-handed regulatory things like the Clean Air Act, but a lot of it is mostly coming from the innovation as we've continued to clean our air. Our air pollutants have declined significantly even since 1990. Carbon monoxide is down 79% since 1990. Nitrogen dioxide is down 62%. Sulfur dioxide is down 92%. That's why we don't have acid rain in any appreciable sense here. So, we have many things to be happy about and to be grateful about. I think the same thing is true for waterways. And I wanted to just briefly point out, the EPA's rivers and streams assessment. They're looking at this a lot. And we're actually finding that the river and stream miles in good condition are increasing over time since, 2013, 2014. So lots of reasons to be optimistic about the environment and to say, look, we're doing good things with innovation, voluntary approaches here. And there's plenty more to talk about in this article too. So
Yeah.
dig in where you'd like. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think the waterways thing. First of all, the air quality thing was amazing. I mean, the fact that we're down again 79%, 62% on nitrogen dioxide. The acid rain component down 92%, lead down 87%, just from 2010. I mean, the chart you have on your Montalbano, which by the way you can find Sarah at sarahmontalbano.substack.com. If you just Google Sarah Montalbano and Substack, you'll find her. But the chart just shows these, everything's like diving down and going down. And I think it's amazing. The waterway thing, 99% of rivers and stream miles in the entire country were found not to be acidic. We've seen, up to a 35% increase in good conditions, and it just the news just keeps getting better. Forests are doing so much better as well. Species are bouncing back, and severe weather events are not, because that was the big thing, right? So again, I was on a meme journey last night before I went to bed, and it was like, oh, it's cold outside. That's proof that climate's changing. Oh, it's hot outside. Oh, the climate's changing. Oh, it's dry outside. Oh, the climate's changing. It's that kind of thing. But when you look at the overall, severe weather events, that's not, we're not seeing any kind of trending in that frequency.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I think it's really important to be wary of this whole climate attribution in the in the news, frankly. I saw something. So I'm living in Florida, and I was, watching Hurricane Erin that was anticipated to just swoop up the coast. And, what I was seeing is this, Hurricane Erin was diverted from the US mainland because of climate change. And I'm like, well, that's a good thing, right? We didn't want landfall on this one. It was Cat 5.
Right.
Right. So it's, it's something to be wary of. And, NOAA even says, it's premature to conclude with high confidence that human-caused increases in greenhouse gases have caused a change in past Atlantic basin hurricane activity that is outside the range of natural variability. And I copy-paste a figure in my piece from a research paper that's just saying, look, the overall trend for continental U.S. landfalling hurricanes has been flat, or at least a little insignificant declines from 1900 to 2017. And when you see all of this concern about, oh gosh, these are billion-dollar disasters, NOAA had a database about billion-dollar disasters. And that's really because we are just building more on the coasts. We have more population there. And so, of course, our population and our property damage goes up when we have more of this along the coast. So when you normalize for population, there isn't a significant trend there either.
Right. No, exactly. I mean, the more you build, yes, you're going to have more disasters and more, devastation because there's more people actually there. If it's just swampland or palm trees, nobody's going to necessarily care. But when they're actually living there and their houses get wrecked, that's when it's going to be a big thing. The Tongass is a big discussion point here for us here in Alaska. And they're talking about, one of the things you point out is that forest coverage in the U.S. has been stable, not just stable, but actually growing back as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's been about it's been stable about since 1910. All of our major deforestation in the United States happened in the 1600s, right? When we first had European settlement. And it's about 766 million acres in 2012, and in 2017 it's 765 million. Despite the fact that we've tripled human population since 1910, we are being exactly where we need to be. So we have proactive wildfire management now. I think the U.S. Forest Service is more interested in doing more of that. Mechanical thinning, prescribed burns. We're reducing the intensity of wildfires while enabling a sustainable timber harvest.
Yeah.
And the Tongass National Forest, I think, is just a beautiful example of this. I believe there's been federal action to roll back the roadless rule, the 2001 regulation, and that is very exciting to me. I wrote about that back when it was reinstated by the Biden administration, and now it's flipping back. So we'll see where it goes. But I think that's really encouraging because we aren't going to need tons of roads. We're not, paving over the whole thing here. These resource management plans really only allow for, 50 miles of new road over the next 100 years in the Tongass.
Right.
This is not going to be a major impact on the forest, but it will make a difference, I think, to the Southeast timber industry, such as it is. Not tons to report there, but I think the Forest Service will be able to create a sustainable timber harvesting plan for the Tongass.
Just over 2 minutes here left, Aaron. So Sarah, the question is, why aren't we being taught this?
Mm-hmm.
Why aren't the kids being taught that we're actually getting better and doing better? Is it because fear sells? I mean, what's the reason in your mind?
Yeah, I think it's a difficult problem because this is down to the education system again, right? Like this is about, what are public schools teaching? What are, charter and private schools teaching? And a lot of this is controlled by curriculum at the state level, right? So, when I was looking at this, the Minnesota state standards have a lot of, teach kids how to interpret these, kind of graphs, concrete skills like that. But then there's a lot of prescribed outcomes too, where they say, well, you need to understand why, climate change is happening. Why are these things? And I think it kind of distracts from the point that the human environment is getting better. And that's it's a hard question. It's a really hard question. I'm glad you asked, but it's difficult.
I'll throw my 2 cents in the ring. I think, again, a prescribed outcome, I think, is the key point of what you said there is that there's some outcome-based stuff because people just have a belief in a certain thing, and facts be damned. You show them all these facts and they go, well, but still, how dare you, right? I mean, that's kind of where we're at at this point. And it's frustrating. But if you don't catch Sarah, if you don't read Sarah, you should. If you don't subscribe to her Substack, you should. Again, Montalbano Mondays is over at sarahmontalbano.substack.com. And we appreciate Sarah coming on and joining us, especially when she's feeling under the weather. Sarah, thank you so much for coming on board.
Thank you for having me. Thanks for bearing with me.
It's all good. All right, hold the line for just a second. Folks, we're out of time. Mike Jones is going to be part of our new series of local candidates. He's coming in here in a few minutes to talk with us about his run for city council in Homer. Back with more of The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio. I mean, I think that's really what it comes down to it, Sarah. That's really what it's all about is kind of I guess the word I would use is proselytizing, right? I mean, they're in the schools, they have this captive audience and they have an outcome that they want. And they're just, damn the facts. This is what you need to be. And again, fear sells, like you said. I mean, I don't know. What was I think you actually had the percentage of teens who are really 37% of teens feel anxious when they think about climate change. And a third, more than 30% feel helpless, but they're not being taught that we're doing better. We can improve. We can be taught, we're tool using monkeys. We can figure it out kind of thing, and that's kind of frustrating.
It is. And I have so many reasons to be optimistic. This just kind of scratches the surface of good reasons to feel positive about it. And, I don't take a position on climate change. American Experiment doesn't take a position on climate change. But there's so many concrete things we can point to and say, well, this is getting better. Well, this is getting better. I mean, what are the ways that we can, deal with those things instead of this kind of overwhelming global problem that I think kids don't know how to react to. It's not as simple as, picking up cans at the local stream, litter, just those kind of environmental actions are seen as pointless, which is a huge problem.
Yeah, no, absolutely. What are you working on now, Sarah? Give us a tease as to what you're working on now.
That's a great question. We are launching a Make Mining American Again campaign at American Experiment. So that has involved some DC kind of actions from us. We're also continuing to work on this data centers problem. Minnesota has been kind of uniquely awful about its new data center regulations. So we're going to be, I think, taking a closer look at that and about North Dakota as well. So lots of good stuff.
Yeah, no, good stuff. And of course, we always welcome you to come back on and talk to us about anything. If you got something hot, you know, you got the number. Just give us a call and we'll get you on board. I hope you feel better.
Thank you. I hope so too. It's been a long, 10 days.
Yeah, no, I feel you for sure. All right, Sarah Montalbano again, sarahmontalbano.substack.com. Thanks for coming on board and being with us today. We appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, thanks so much. Sarah Montalbano, our guest here on the program for today. Yeah, I mean, it blows my mind. You read, let me drop the link to this article in the chat room because you need to go out and read it and take a look at some of the numbers on it because it is astonishing when you look at it overall. And you start asking the question, why aren't we teaching this? Why aren't we saying, yes, we need to continue to work on it? But at the same time, why are we teaching them that the world is, the sky is falling when it's not nearly as bad as they're saying it is? That's my question. So it is definitely it's definitely some crazy stuff for sure. All right. I'm sorry. I'm looking. Let's see. Suzanne Downing resigned from the Must Read Alaska. Okay. That's news. Apparently Suzanne Downing has resigned from Must Read Alaska is the word that I'm getting now through the grapevine. That's something that we'll peel into. Something else we're going to peel into. I don't know if we'll have time today because we're waiting for Mike Jones to jump on the program here in a second. But the Fairbanks City Council tonight, if you guys are listening in Fairbanks, and maybe we'll hit this right at the top of the hour as we're coming into this, but the Fairbanks City Council is going to take up a controversial ordinance tonight that would sharply restrict what residents can display on their own property. And we're talking about political signs. Sue Sprinkle, who is one of the city council members, would confine temporary signs such as political campaign signs to a 90-day window, limiting them to June through November in most years. Signs outside that period, including those for candidates or ballot items or initiatives, would be prohibited under city law. She argues that the campaign signs left up too early or lingering too long after an election amount to visual litter. Under the ordinance, any sign violating the timeline would be deemed a public nuisance. Property owners would have up to 15 days after receiving notice to remove the display, after which the city would remove it at the owner's expense. I mean, this again, and Suzanne points it out, is a direct assault on free speech. Pointing to the federal court ruling in ACLU of Alaska versus Alaska DOT, which struck down state restrictions on political signs as unconstitutional. I mean, they're opening themselves up to a huge potential for lawsuits here. And quite honestly, it's none of your damn business, right? None of your business what I put up on my sign or what I put up on my yard. What if I wanted to put up a sign all year long that basically said the legislature is inept and we need to remove them? Right? I mean, that to me, that is, I mean, there's some stuff happening there that does not make me comfortable or happy with that. But this is the government's thing, right? Well, we're going to tell you how to live your life better than visual litter. I just, Love it. All right, we got to go. We're going to continue the Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Back with more after this.
Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Live around the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com and across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Good morning, my friends. Welcome back to the program. It is the Michael Duke Show, and we're broadcasting here on this beautiful Monday, ready to go. I hope you had a great weekend. It is, man, it was a whirlwind for me. I essentially worked all weekend and just getting into it. I'm still trying to, it took me the first hour just to wake up, but we got through it with Sarah Montalbano from Montalbano Mondays over at Substack. She writes for the American Experiment, and she is doing some great work on energy and some other issues. If you missed that, you can go back and listen to it on the podcast, which is available wherever podcasts are found here. We also, of course, have got Mike Jones coming up here in just a moment. He's going to be joining us to discuss his candidacy for the city council here in Homer. We're going to talk with him. I think he's actually on the phone right now. Are you with us, Mike?
I am. Thank you.
Okay. Did you get the new link that I sent over in your mail just a second ago?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
And I'm a Mac user, and I get feedback that Safari is no longer accepted.
Oh,
Blah, blah,
I
you
see.
know.
I see. You got to use Chrome. All right. Well, hold the line for a second here, Mike. I'll be right back to you. Before we get to Mike, and we're doing all this because I'm a one-man show. That's how it works sometimes. I wanted to touch base on this story real quick because it's time sensitive. Tonight in Fairbanks, if you're listening in Fairbanks, the Fairbanks City Council is going to take up a controversial ordinance that would restrict what residents can display on their own property and when they can display it. Sue Sprinkle, the city council member, has created an ordinance or proposal that would confine temporary signs like political signs to a 90-day window, limiting them to June through November in most years. Signs outside of that period, including those for candidates or ballot items, or I would assume anything, would be prohibited under city law. She argues that the campaign signs put up too early or left too late after an election basically amount to what she calls visual litter. Under the ordinance, any sign violating that timeline would be deemed a public nuisance. Property owners would have 15 days after notice to remove the signs and the displays, after which the city could remove it at the owner's expense. Now, she's opening the city of Fairbanks up to some big problems here. It's a direct assault on free speech, and there's a pointed court battle to this specifically. It's the federal court's ruling in ACLU of Alaska versus the DOT, which struck down state restrictions on political signs as unconstitutional. So if enacted, the Fairbanks ordinance would not only suppress political expression ahead of special elections like the one that was held back in May. Remember, they were going to do that back in May. it would open the city up to, I would think, a variety of legal challenges on this. And quite honestly, it's none of your damn business. What if I put up a sign on my lawn in Fairbanks that said, we need to clear out the legislature. We need to remove, change out the players, or whatever I put up there that maybe wasn't necessarily for a candidate or a specific thing. Is that considered litter? If I put up a sign that said, stay off my lawn, is that, I mean, this is nanny stating to the extreme. Sue Sprinkle, I don't know where she came from, but she needs to go. There's just no way. This makes no sense whatsoever. It's my property. I pay for it. I pay the property taxes. I do everything else. It's none of your damn business what I put out. As long as I'm not hurting anybody, and visual litter is not a hurt or a harm to anybody, it makes zero sense, whatsoever, that this is what's going on. But the city council is going to meet tonight at 6:30 p.m. at City Hall, and you can testify in person, or you can email comments to cityclerk@fairbanks.us. cityclerk@fairbanks.us. So if you're listening in Fairbanks, you need to get on board here and let your voice be heard, because this is this is just astonishing, just absolutely astonishing that this is the direction that she would go, or that any government would go in this regard. Absolutely. Again, the nanny stating of, we know better than you how you should live your life or take care of your property or do whatever. It's astonishing. All right. Well, let's get to it here. We're about to jump into it with Mike Jones, who is a candidate for the city council here in Homer, and this is part of our series that we're doing for local elected candidates. And I put out an email last week to all the borough and municipal candidates that I could find on the website. I sent out about, I don't know, it was like 40 email. Well, one email with like 40, you know what I mean? I sent out the email inviting people on to talk about it. And so let's get down to it and jump into it and get things ready to rock and roll with Mike Jones, who joins us this morning on the telephone to discuss. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Great. Thank you, Michael. Thanks for having me.
Well, appreciate you coming on board and talking with us today. This is, like I said, this is an important thing. I believe that we need to get more information and get folks involved and invested in their local elections. And we want to get we want to get into this. So let's get started. For folks who don't know who you are, who you are, where you came from. Let's talk about candidate Mike Jones. What give us some background here.
Great, thank you, Michael. And just two items of note. I've got a little bit of what Sarah had in your first segment, and so I'm just kind of working through some of that. So apologize for that. And additionally, you had an episode a couple weeks ago where you just kind of went through. Here's a whole bunch of public service positions that are all up for election and nobody's running.
Right.
And that really inspired me. I'm listening to that podcast. I'm out working in the yard and I'm going, dang it. I need to get engaged. I've been doing a variety of things and being engaged kind of from the outside,
Right,
and it's
right.
like, hey, and my perspective was, hey, if I don't step up here, I kind of lose my whining rights, And
right.
So,
wait. Are you blaming me, Mike? Are you blaming me for getting you activated for what's going on here?
Yeah. Preemptive strike, just in case.
It's all my fault.
So.
It's all my fault. All right,
Yeah,
Mike. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you came from.
Great. Thanks for that. Appreciate it. Hey, I was born and raised in Eastern Washington State. Went to Washington State University, graduated with a mechanical engineering degree. Right away, got a job offer California and worked for an electric and gas utility down there for about 38 years or so. And in that whole time period, getting married, raising kids, and doing the things, making a living and doing all that kind of stuff, had a great opportunity to career-wise to advance in varying degrees of additional responsibility, throughout a career, and had quite an experience in the energy business, hydro, fossil, geothermal, solar, wind, you name it, kind of technologies and what have you. And so really exciting kind of career stuff. Some of that even had us move overseas to Australia, had me do international mergers and acquisitions development activity in Australia, South America, and ultimately we got to the point of having that conversation about, hey, when we retire, what are you interested in? You want to live in the mountains or you want to live by the sea? And typical conversation. And we got introduced to Homer about 2015. Our son-in-law, newly graduated from the Coast Guard Academy, got assigned to come here. And so he and our daughter came here, and we first got introduced to that. And it was like, holy cow. Having those conversations, we could retire here and we could have both those things. We could have the mountains, we could have the sea, and what a beautiful place. We fell in love with it right away when we first saw it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's the draw that Homer has on many people, including myself. That's a similar story to what my wife and I discovered in 2015. You've got a pretty solid, rock solid background there. But again, outside of just listening to the show, I know you've been politically active. I heard your name being thrown around by some people in various forums and talking points. You are known to be well prepared to have discussions and to put out good opinion pieces, et cetera, et cetera. But what made you want to jump? I mean, was it just my nudge to say, my God, look at all these empty seats and now's the time? Or has it been lurking in your heart? I mean, what's been going on there?
Yeah, so we when we ultimately moved here, and I started meeting people and getting engaged and just learning more about the community and stuff, I saw that there was probably a need to participate in a variety of different forums, and so I provided oral and written testimony in various proceedings around here, at the Planning Commission, City Council, Port and Harbor Commission, and even in the state legislature, and just thought there was an opportunity. I had lived a lifetime in California and seen where policy was put in place that maybe wasn't going to be successful. Turned out it wasn't successful. And I get here and I love this place. And it's like, hey, maybe there's an opportunity to head off some of this stuff and participate in these various forums and shape the policies and the direction our government's going to be going. And, after a few years of doing that, it kind of became more clear to me that, I probably got to be on the inside a little bit more. Right now, I'm on the outside, pushing in, providing feedback, providing guidance, feeling like I'm being effective, but perhaps I could be even more effective if I was actually on the inside and, in this case, a city council member. So
right.
Anyway, it's just kind of all grew over some time of some experience and surrounding myself with some good people. I've got a small election integrity group we've been hitting up here, and then I'm partnered with Ben Carpenter and others in a nonprofit called Alaskans for Transparent Government, and it's just an opportunity really to kind of give back. We love this place and we want it to continue to be a wonderful place for people to enjoy, and it's just a chance to give back.
To thrive and survive. That's what we want to have here as we go through. Candidate Mike Jones is our guest, the Homer City Council. We're coming up on the break, so we're going to take the first one here, and we're going to come back in just a minute, and we'll talk about his vision and priorities for what he sees here in the Homer area. We'll continue. If you have a candidate that's running for local office, city or borough, and you want them to appear on the show, make sure you reach out to me. It's me at michaeldukeshow.com, me@michaeldukeshow.com. Send me an email or have them send me an email. We'll get them on the program. I put out invites to a lot of people, but maybe I missed somebody. So feel free to do that. We're going to continue here in just a moment with candidate Mike Jones running for Homer City Council. We'll be back with more in just a moment.
Running on 100% pure beard power. Oh, also some coffee. We dip our beard in coffee.
Ha, nice beard.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay, we're in the break right now, and we are talking with Mike Jones. We're going to continue. We're going to continue with him here, talking about all different kinds of stuff. Obviously, it's this whole thing, Michael. I feel you, because I was where you were at many years ago in Fairbanks, when I was like, man, I got to do something. I've been out on the outside looking in, and I think I gotta jump in there and and slap some people around from the inside. And that was an interesting experience. Let me just put it that way. That was an experience where I was like, okay, I did it. I'm glad I did it, but I don't know if I would do it again, because sometimes it's so hard to get these people, to move in the right direction. You know what I mean? And Homer, although it's kind of a split community, the city council, it seems like, has been more on the opposite side of the philosophical fence from where I've been. And I imagine this is probably going to be an uphill battle. Are you ready for that?
Yeah, I am. Thanks. It's, I first shared with Chris Story that I was going to be running. He said, congratulations. And I said, the proper word is congratulances,
Yeah,
It's,
exactly.
it's yes, I recognize it's likely to be a challenge. I think that's okay. I think it's you learn and you grow from those kind of experiences, and I'm okay with doing that. A side note, my formal name is Michael Jones, and I have that on all my campaign signs. But in all my friends, know me as Mike Jones and stuff. So just be aware, if folks are out there looking around for signs, it'll say Michael Jones. And I'm the only Jones running, so nobody should get mixed up there.
Yeah, no, if people can't figure out that Mike is short for Michael, we may have deeper problems at that point, right? We may have some deeper issues if that's the conundrum there for most folks as well.
Yeah.
And coming to Homer, I mean, you came here, as you said, with your son-in-law and your daughter to take a look. Did you visit it and then immediately decide, or was this something that came about over time? I'm just curious, because my wife and I made the decision pretty easily early on. We're like, okay, we've got a new goal with our first trip to Homer. But was it a process for you, or was it right away?
Yeah, it was a process. My wife actually came in 2015 and helped our daughter get moved in and settled and everything. And she came back, and it was like, hey, it's a pretty special place. And so we were able to go the next year, 2016, and then back again, I think, in 2018. And then we were having those retirement conversations in 2019, and it was, neither of us really wanted to express to each other, hey, Homer could be a good place to do it, until we sat down and had that conversation. And it was really on our hearts. It really, we really were in love with it. And 2019 made the commitment and moved here in 2020, and have just enjoyed it ever since.
Yeah, well, it's pretty crazy how much Homer gets into your blood. I won't say that for nothing. It is pretty crazy how easy it is for Homer to get in there and just kind of dig in and not get away. My folks in the interior, I don't know, they may not understand that, but for me, it was my wife and I. It was that first trip, and then we were like, okay, how do we do that? And we spent the next 10 years figuring out how to do that, because I'm not near retirement age yet. So I was like, okay, well, how do we make it happen? But all right, we're about 30 seconds out here from rejoining the radio, so we're going to put Mike back on hold here. We're going to get our ducks all lined up. If you want to share the show, I would really appreciate it. We've got about 50 people watching on the various channels this morning. And so if you would like and share the show, that would be great. I like to get that ratio up there. We've only got 18 people liking the show this morning and about 45 or 50 on Facebook, YouTube, etc. So feel free to like and subscribe, ring the bell, do all that stuff. Let's get to it. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio.
The Michael Duke Show. Seriously humorous with a pinch of intellect. Sorry. That is humorous. Here's Michael Dukes.
Well, howdy. How are you guys doing? You ready to rock and roll? Let's get back to it here. Our guest is Michael Jones, otherwise known as Mike Jones, who's running for city council in the Homer area. Let's continue on with him here and get his take on what's hot in the area, in the community. Mike, you've been, I don't live in the city of Homer, so I'm not as paying close attention to the issues that are in there as you are. And like I said, I know you've been engaged here over the last couple of years on a lot of the different issues. So you're well versed in this. So as an outsider looking in, what are going to be the big things that are going to be facing the city of Homer in the next, 3 years or whatever your term is here? What are the things that you think are going to be facing the city? What are the challenges that the citizens need to be aware about?
Yeah, thanks, Michael. The clarification, I'm running for a 1-year seat.
Okay.
There's 2 3-year seats available, and this is a 1-year seat. And so that ought to show up on the ballot kind of that way. I think as I started engaging here and looking, forward, I've been involved in the comprehensive plan update effort, and that's really a 2045 plan. And so that whole effort has been striving to shape where the city should go, and to a certain degree shape the rules for the planning commission in light of what the city ultimately thinks the vision ought to be. And then the planning commission needs to make sure that I think it's Title 21, the rules of executing within the planning commission, that they have those rules in place and they are making decisions consistent with that. And so that's, been an important feature of what's been going on for the last, I think year and a half or so at least. And so that shapes kind of the general vision of the city. And then as you look through that planning process, and as you look at the capital plan, which is actually being discussed in a workshop today at 4:00, the kind of view of the world and challenge that I see for us is that there's a whole lot of demand for money and not necessarily a whole lot of supply. And does that sound familiar? Does that sound like stuff you and Brad Keithley have been talking about at the state level?
We have all these great ideas with absolutely no way to pay for any of it, but let's do it anyway.
Yeah. So that's a little bit of the challenge there. And I think, as we navigate through that, we've got to have the discipline of asking the question, who pays for this, or how does it get paid for? We got to have a vision as to what that funding stream looks like. And we've got to have really a bias of how do we keep more money in our constituents' pockets so that they can choose the things that they want to emphasize, as opposed to us in government taking that money and using it for the things that we believe is the right thing, or that we are influenced by a small group of people coming in to a city council meeting and submitting budget items, and that looks like it represents what the public interest is, but maybe it really isn't. Maybe it isn't really universally accepted as this is the most important thing for us to do, but really it's a small group of people that shape that. And so that's some of the challenge that I see that's out there. Is I see there's a whole lot of great ideas to do lots of things, not sure how broadly, universally required or desired those things are. And, step back to the primary position of, is this something that our city government should actually be involved in? Is
Right.
this what our raison d'etre is? Is this what we were formed for? And
Right.
so those are some of those challenges.
Geez, Mike, I don't know if I can vote for you because you apparently are not feeling that you know better than us how to spend our money. That's that's almost a precursor for any politician, is that they have to have that feeling of superiority. This is the problem in general, I think, with smaller city governments and municipal governments is, most people have become, over the course of the last few decades, have become so focused on everything that's going on the national level. They can tell you everything that's happening in Washington and what the bills are and all that other kind of stuff, but they're not paying attention to what's happening in their own backyard. They're not paying attention to the things that affect them even more than the national issues. And I think that is part of the challenge that we're facing today, is that people are not as engaged on the local issues, even though it's what affects them the most. Do you think I'm wrong?
No, I see where you're going exactly, and it's just too easy to get information and get engaged. At that national level, you got multiple data streams, you got podcasts, and you've got all kinds of push notifications and links and things like that you can jump to articles, and some of that's confirmation bias. The things that interested me the most is the stuff I'm going to keep looking at and everything, and so we've got this information flow that's just readily available there, but at the local city level and what have you, it's just really kind of hard to get plugged in to the information. And so some of that's that.
Yeah.
Having been new to the community, living only here now 5.5 years or so, getting plugged into the information flows and having it readily available and coming to me, as opposed to me having to reach out at these multiple different, disparate news sources and stuff like that. Pretty challenging.
One of the things that you mentioned was that I always found to be a thorn in my side when I was working on the borough assembly, was one of my hot button issues was private property rights, right? We worked on grandfather rights and a lot of other things for people. And one of the things that always seemed to stymie me was you mentioned, like the comp plan, all this planning that people are doing, that bureaucrats are getting paid tens of thousands of dollars to decide what our plan should look like for the coming years for our community. Usually speaking, those bureaucrats are somewhere outside, of the area, pulling it in and doing it. And they have all these grandiose plans. But again, the question is, how do we pay for them? But I think the even deeper question is it really what we want as a community? As you said, there's a small group that usually focuses in on these issues and pays attention to those local issues. And so you mentioned this comp plan and everything else. Is that one of the things that we need to be watching? Is that one of the issues when I ask you for issues? Is that one of the issues we should be looking at?
Well, I think so. It's coming up for actually commission or city council approval to then go towards the borough for their final approval of the comp plan in the next few weeks or whatever. There's been enormous amount of comments provided by a variety of people all along the way. It was interesting the other night at the Planning Commission meeting. The construct that they used was they had a representative from the Planning Commission kind of be involved and engaged along the way. But some of the planning commissioners even mentioned, hey, you're asking us to approve this plan so we can move it to the city council. And I just feel like I've been disconnected from it throughout this whole process, and that's one of those natural things when you're trying to do a kind of a big grandiose planning effort, in what the comp plan is how do you even just get the commissioners from the representative commissions in the city to be engaged sufficiently enough along the way where they've shaped it. Okay. So the question is was this shaped from the ground up, or was this, a template that was put in place, by the consultant and fill in the gaps of, similar things we've used elsewhere, right?
Right.
With a lot of hard work, we've, tailored it a little bit more towards, personalizing it towards Homer, but I'm just not sure that we've got, the far broad-reaching input that you really want to have, because this is kind of, committing to do certain things for the next many years.
Well, that's the thing.
It
locks you in. It locks you. That's the problem with these planning documents, is they lock you into a plan that is 30 or 40 years in scope. And you don't understand maybe the unintended consequences of some of those things until you get further on down the road. And again, it shuts you in from being able to do certain things with property or your livelihood or other things. It's kind of a troubling thing, and I don't know how to get more people involved in putting those things together.
Yeah. I think one thing I've really been advocating for the last 6-8 months or so in the commentary period is you need to make it very clear that this is aspirational. It's not creating obligations for which you have no funding for, and that somebody can come back, a year or 2 or 3 in advance from now and say, hey, you said right here in this document you're going to do this. Now you need to step up and do this.
Right.
And it's not in the context of, well, do we even have funding? Do we even have the skill set to be able to take that on? Was that even appropriate for the city to have as an action? One of the things I advocate for is the city should stick in its lanes. It has certain responsibilities to do, and if there's all kinds of other stuff that is being asked of the city to do, the question is should we even be doing that? And,
right.
I've strived to help shape the plan that way, but I'm just, a citizen out here providing commentary.
Right.
And the more of us who could provide commentary and feedback and shape that, the better off we are.
One of the other big issues in the Homer area, of course, is the port revitalization. And I don't know where you stand on that, but I know that that's been kind of a hot button issue that affects not only the people who live within the city limits, but also, of course, all the surrounding areas and everything else. What's your take on this discussion of the port project and everything else?
Yeah, one thing that's, I think, important, and it's also important with the comprehensive plan or anything that the city does, is the process. You got to be involved in the process, and I've been engaged in the process of the efforts and the discussion of the port expansion, and I'm still kind of on the fence whether it's a super good thing to do or no, we should never do it. But what I've strived to do is make sure that my commentary, my input is shaped up within the process of, okay, if you're going to do this, you ought to consider X, Y, Z. If we're going to do that, it ought to be this size. The Corps of Engineers is responsible for the basic shell of the harbor expansion. And so they've been facilitating a process of discussions about what should the harbor, be capable of doing, et cetera, and what's the footprint that is necessary in order to achieve that. And so the city gave its feedback to the Corps recently as to, I think it's like alternative B or plan B, I think they call it. And that's a certain size and shape that would accommodate what people envision would be necessary. But it's important you be involved in the process all along the way. And as that gets developed and the footprints known and the impacts, pro and con, are developed and what have you, then people can weigh in more in an advocacy position. But it's hard unless you really know kind of what people are talking about. So it's important to be involved in that planning, shaping, and defining the problem statement, so that you can have good, effective conversations afterwards.
No, again, this is a participatory sport, right? I mean, this is where we're
Right.
supposed, but people are frustrated. I mean, there's a lot of people who are, kind of burned out on the political things, whether it's national or local. But it is, we've got to stay engaged as residents and everything else, especially in things that affect us so close to home. And I mean, that's what we've advocated here for in the program. For years here is it's one of the reasons why we don't deal with a lot of national issues, because again, we should be focusing on what's happening in our own backyards. And I think people are burned out or frustrated or just feel like their voice doesn't matter in that regard.
Yeah, and in the harbor expansion, an example of one thing I've done, I think it was back in March or so, I gave a presentation at a workshop, and I helped work through and provide the Port Commission, some tools as to think about. If you're going to go ahead and have a harbor expansion, and people typically want to come in and hang ornaments on the Christmas tree, right? Oh, you're doing this? Well, we ought to do this instead.
Right,
and we ought to do this. And scope creep occurs and things like that. And so I walked them through, it's probably an hour-long presentation, and it's online. You could look it up. I walked them through a thought process and some tool sets to consider as to, if somebody wants to add this ornament on it, how do we think about that, and how do you protect yourself and the people involved? And so what kind of technical analysis do you need to do, and then what kind of commercial protections do you need to put in place? And so
Right.
in thinking about that, it's not really a political question and stuff. It's just getting tool sets in place for people to make good decisions.
Well, of course,
that's what I strive to do.
Yeah, of course, the big question is, okay, you love this Christmas, had this ornament, how do you pay for it? That's the other big thing that,
Right.
I think
Right.
that's the multi-gazillion dollar question at this point. Michael Jones is our guest candidate for the Homer City Council. We're going to continue with him here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. We continue right after this.
We're broadcasting live through a series of tubes,
allowing all of these entities to provide streaming stuff going on the internet.
well, it's kind of hard to explain. Sorry. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay. We're in the break right now. Mike Jones is our guest. Let's go over here and see what some of the listeners have said during the break. See if we've got some questions here. Miguel said, I fell for Homer myself when I went on a trip there in 2022. What a beautiful place. But the interior is home sweet home. Miguel, you're a better man than I am. I just, I discovered 10 years ago that there was life after Fairbanks, and I haven't looked back since. I love the people there, but I like the daylight and the warmer weather. Call me a wuss, whatever you want to do, but and there's just something about Homer that's all good here. Ben Carpenter says, prioritize needs and wants. Who pays? Keep money in Alaska's pockets? Ooh, sounds like long-term thinking to me. And Mike, I think that's really what we need to talk about here, is the long-term thinking that seems to be absent in much of our lawmaking around the state.
Yeah, boy, I hear you and Brad, every Tuesday, and by the time you guys are done talking, I really do need that Chris Story segment at the end.
Yeah. I know, right? You're just feeling like, how do we do? We have been fighting this. I've been fighting this battle for 25 years, this kind of long-term idea of, okay, how do we pay for all this great gee whiz stuff that you guys have all come up with? And it's hard, Mike.
Yeah. One of the principles I gave the Port Commission in my presentation was was kind of I call it the make me indifferent principle. And that's if, somebody wants to come and hang an ornament on the project, great. You need to make me indifferent.
Right.
How is it going to be paid for initially? How's the ongoing maintenance expenditures? How's the capital investment expenditures going to occur? And what are the liability protections that I'm going to have? And just make me indifferent. Fix that all up and make it not come out of my pocket or us as taxpayers' pockets and stuff, and make us indifferent to it and provide all the protections. And maybe it's a perfectly good thing to do, but unless that's in place, I'm not going to be supportive of it, kind of thing. So
right.
Yeah,
We've got to find ways to, again, protect the citizenry from I guess I would say the do-goodery that we're seeing in a lot of these. We were just talking about this thing in Fairbanks, right? The city council member who's decided that they're going to decide what is visually pleasing to them, and have government be the arbiter of whether or not you could place something on your own property. I mean, it's that kind of do-goodery that, while may have the best of intentions, the unintended consequences of the quashing of fundamental rights like free speech and things like that, that's the worst part of government, especially at the local level.
Yeah. I think, and that's an example of it could be very expedient to do that kind of a thing.
Right.
Okay, very expedient. You take something before the city council approves it, great, quick decision, all that. But the real structure ought to be very arduous to kind of make a decision like that. It ought to, take a lot of conversation. It ought to go through, a pretty strict process. It ought to go through an election even, and it's some determination of, is this a violation of the Constitution? We're taking freedoms away from somebody. It probably ought to be a pretty arduous process to navigate through, and not be some expedient process where somebody has a proposal and it gets approved in a night.
Right.
That's probably not, and it's probably an indicator of a problem right there.
Right. No, I would agree with that. If folks want to get involved in the city government and want to be paying closer attention, what and like you said, you kind of had to take a crash course in it, only being here, for the last 5.5 years or so. What do you recommend for people who might be listening, to the podcast later on? I mean, what do you recommend they do to try and get engaged with this kind of stuff?
Yeah, one tool I found pretty useful is to go to the city's website, and under the city council, you can see what their calendar is. And they meet every 2 weeks, and on that calendar item, you can click on it and you can see the agenda and all the supporting materials and et cetera. And I think that's all usually the supporting materials are all produced about Thursday in advance of a Monday meeting. Mondays at 6:00.
Right.
And so you can see the whole calendar and whole agenda, and you can do that for any of the commissions too, Planning Commission, Port and Harbor Commission. And so that's a way to get plugged in. Once again, that's a onus on you to reach out and dig for it and find it. There isn't really a push notification that comes to you that, here's the update for the week. Very well.
Right.
So that kind of thing. So that's a little bit challenging, but those are pretty good resources to navigate through and just to be in the loop of what's going on. Additionally, in regards to the election coming up, there's a couple of candidate forums that are coming up, and they may be fruitful to attend, so you can get kind of observations of the candidates that are running for city council.
Right. No, you definitely get a feel for that if you can go out there and take a look at it. All right, Mike, hold the line. We're about to rejoin the radio. Let's get back to it. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio.
The Michael Duke Show, proudly splitting the left versus right dichotomy. Yeah, I had to look that word up too. I don't think it means what he thinks it means. Here he is, though. That guy, Michael Dukes, the one with the show.
Okay, we are back, finishing up here with Michael Jones, who's a candidate for Homer City Council. Again, part of our lineup of local candidates here for local office. We're going to take a crack here at this last segment. I want to get Mike's vision for where he'd like to see Homer going. If you look back and this is only a 1-year seat for you, Mike. I don't know if you plan on running again for reelection for going for a longer term or not. But what is your what is your vision for the city of Homer? I mean, give us your kind of your overall look and goal, and maybe even aspirational stuff. What would you like to see? And looking back 5 years from now, Mike Jones has been on the assembly or on the city council for that long. What would you like to have seen when it's all said and done? Give us your vision.
Thanks, Michael. Hey, the a key thing is yes, this is a 1-year term until it becomes available for a 3-year term after this 1 year. The 1-year term is actually pretty interesting because it's a try before you buy opportunity for both me and for both the city council and the residents of the city. They have an opportunity to see me for a year and see if they like that, and if they don't like that, they can vote me out next year, kind of thing. So that's
right.
I think pretty helpful. Yeah. So I'm not going into this kind of role to be a career city council member. I just want to contribute and shape as best as I possibly can, and at some point exit that and let somebody else take the reins and continue on. And so that said, a 5-year view, if I were in that role for 5 years and looking back on it, things that I would want to be proud of is that Homer still has retained its quaint community look and feel. It's a wonderful place to come and visit, and for tourists to come and visit and see, and just this little community that is a fun place and with a variety of different interests and stuff. I love that, right? And I want to still preserve that. Additionally, I would want to see us having successfully created, a good base of good private sector jobs, well-paying jobs that are year-round, that perhaps associated with the marine industry. That we have a pretty vibrant marine industry present, and it could probably grow more to meet more of the needs of a broader audience rather than just in the community. A harbor expansion could be a way to do that. It could facilitate some of that stuff. That could be a vehicle for that, but there could be other ways that we improve private sector presence. And so we want to make sure that we're not creating barriers or hurdles from that. I would want to see a government that has not expanded, that has lived within its means, provided good services in an excellent way, cost effectively, to meet our residents' needs. And I think if we do those things, I think that would be successful.
And of course, the one thing that I keep coming back to as a property owner is, making sure that the tax base is, being able to own your own property is the thing. And I'm always worried about, especially with the explosion of real estate pricing and the property taxes that are associated with it. We want to keep people in the community. Part of keeping that kind of quaintness in those is keeping some of the people here who otherwise might be forced out by that increase in the creep and scope of government getting larger, and therefore having to have a larger slice of the property taxes be brought into it. Is that a concern for you?
Yeah, actually, I've been working with Chris Story on the fair tax, and fully agree with his desired approach there, and helped him shape some of the language of that document and where we're trying to go there. Once again, I believe that if we keep more money in people's pockets, they can actually provide those funds to go for the things that are important to them. And if that aligns with a whole lot of other people who have the same values or desires and what have you, I think that's a lot more effective way to fund and do things. We can have, better support in more of a volunteer way, directing those funds to do things that help the community in a very targeted fashion. And if somebody has an idea where they want to provide an additional, infrastructure or something like that, that makes sense for the public to do, but not for the city to do, well, they can band together and collect their money and commit to doing that more effectively, I think, than what our city government can do. So, tax base and property taxes, help facilitate that. If we keep those property taxes low, we have dollars in people's pockets where they can choose to invest in the things that are important to them.
Right. Well, and again, being able to stay in your property, even if it's paid for, and yet the the costs are going up. And I think the Fair Tax Act is a genius idea to help try and solve some of those problems. But of course, it creates some conundrums of its own because it limits the revenue sources for these governments, and that is something that they probably are not truly fond of overall. We got about 3 minutes here, Mike. So is there anything else that I missed? Any questions that I should have asked you, or anything else that I should have asked to get, that you're considering or caring about that folks should be aware of?
Yeah, I think, in regards to the Fair Tax Act, for example, as a city council person, that would not be in my wheelhouse of responsibility. And that's fine because an individual, in the community can advocate for certain things. But as a city council member, we got to stay within our lanes. And I don't think the city council directly has impact on property taxes, but the city council has decisions about how to use those property taxes. So we want to make sure that, we are not expanding government in a way that's using up all those property taxes. I think a key thing that's out there for us and looming as I look at the capital plan that's going to be discussed today at 4:00. Boy, big wish list of a lot of stuff, and it's a lot of expensive stuff. And there's actually a lot of mention of state grants and funding coming from the state and et cetera. And, big challenge I see is I just don't see any money in the state to be able to go support those kind of things. So,
yeah.
So I think as we, have our isolated circles around city government versus state government versus federal government. And, I think we got to be considerate that there isn't going to be any state government funding coming our way anytime soon. And that's probably appropriate anyway. So let's figure out how to live within our means and figure out how to do that. And our processes need to be reflective of that reality, that we're not going to see a lot of money coming from the state. So let's live within our means. Let's stay within our lanes. Let's execute that perfectly. And let's deliver on those promises to our constituents.
All right.
And in doing so, perhaps we leave more money in their pockets.
You bet. All right, Mike, final elevator pitch here. We got about 90 seconds so far. Mike Jones, you run into somebody, you're running for city council. Give us your elevator pitch real quick.
Well, I just am pleased to be here. We are in love with this place, and I want to give back to the community that I love. And this is an opportunity to do that. Come out and listen to all the candidates speak at the Homer Chamber Candidate Forum. That's 5:30 at the Kenai Peninsula College in the Kachemak Bay campus on September 16th, Tuesday. Come on out for that. There's a similar forum on September 24th at the Homer Library, 6 to 7. Come out to that. Listen to us all speak and share our values, and support us, and make your decisions accordingly. Get engaged.
Yeah.
What you've said on your show is government is what happens to you when you're not paying attention. This is an opportunity to get engaged and understand what our city government is
Mike
doing.
Jones is our guest. The Michael Duke Show draws to a close for today. Hold the line. We'll be back tomorrow with Brad Keithley. Have a good one. All right, Mike, sorry we were up against a hard break there. I'll let you finish up your thought there. I mean, you're right. Government's what happens to you when you stop paying attention. That's why we need more folks like you who want to engage with the local community. Final thoughts here.
Well, key thing is October 7th is the date to get out and vote. And this is an off-cycle election. And so as you're talking to these candidates coming forward, let's emphasize that point. October 7th is the date. However, here in Homer, the in-person voting begins on September 22nd.
Right.
So, let's get out and vote. These off-cycle elections, it's in October. You even noted the Matsu, they got theirs converted over to November, so to line up with the state elections and stuff. And so this is an opportunity to reinforce that throughout the whole, weeks ahead as you're doing that. And that there's also going on at the same time as the city elections, there's borough elections, and there's five propositions that are out there. And I encourage people to look at those. My perspective is that, we're in an odd year and we ought to support propositions 1, 3, and 5, and read them and see if you come to the same conclusion. And that's my perspective.
All right.
And encourage you to engage in that.
All right. So vote yes on the odds 1, 3, and 5. All right. Mike Jones, thank you so much for coming on board. As always, it's good talking to you. Thank you for being part of the show today. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Michael.
All right, folks, that's it for today. Tomorrow is Brad Keithley and Chris Story. They'll be joining us. We'll get some more deep dive, and we'll have a bigger discussion. That's all coming up. 6 a.m. tomorrow. Be here or be there. Be, you know what I meant. You know what I meant. All right, we will see you guys tomorrow. Be kind. Love one another. Live well. The Michael Duke Show. Common Sense Radio. We'll see you then.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.